The COYGIG Pod and OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
Everyone ran their socks off tonight and they left everything out there. We're very proud of the team's performance.
Let the shackles off Katie a bit so that she can go and play her game.
We're going to go out there to beat them. We're going to try and beat them.
Hello there and welcome to episode 16 of the COYGIG Pod. Off the ball home with everything WSL, Irish football and all the bits in between. I'm Karen Duggan and I don't usually do this bit. So as you might have noticed, there was no podcast last week and Kathleen can't join us this week. Unfortunately, Kathleen had to undergo surgery on her brain. Thankfully though, it went really well. She's back in her beloved Sligo, resting and recovering and hopefully listening in, and we of course wish her all the best. But I think it's all going well considering her main concern when she woke up from surgery was if Joey Carberry was starting for Ireland against Italy. So safe to say that she's the same old Kathleen and she'll be back taking the piss and spreading her Sligo propaganda as much as she can in no time. What that does mean, however, is that you're stuck with me as the host. So my apologies in advance. We'll just say that this is going to be a hell of a lot less professional and a hell of a lot more chaotic than usual. So bear with us, but obviously Off the Ball would not let me do this by myself. So here to put manners on me is the one and only Ruthy Fahy. Ruth, WNL stalwart, one of my oldest friends. Not that we know each other that long, we're just old. Thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Oh God, you're gonna dig in right away. You know, you've been calling me old since I was 21 years old, like 21.
Old and wise. Well, at least you get to spread your wisdom on the podcast with us here today. So obviously we have a new team here and things will be a little bit different, but thankfully some things stay the same. So we will be joined by Emma Carroll later on for the COYGIG WSL Team of the Week. And fresh from her 100th cap at the Pinatar Cup, Liverpool legend Niamh Fahey will join us on the pod for a chat. First though, a lot of weekend action to get through with you, Ruth. Baptism of fire here. There was a lot of football this weekend. We started off a domestic league in Ireland. We had silverware across the pond. And of course, we're getting into the business end of the WSL. So we'll kick it off and just briefly talk about the Women's National League. Obviously, game day one of the season, no real surprises in any of the results. All the people we expected to win did win. Anything stand out to you from the first week?
Not particularly. I think, like you said, probably all expected. Obviously, personally, really pleased to see Galway keep a clean sheet. Good way to start for the Westerners. I actually got to see Bows and Shells. I got there. I was a little bit delayed, so I got the second half. It was 0-0 up until the last 20 minutes or so, a Parasolary goal. But I thought Bows actually could have held them 0-0. They're brilliant defensively, despite the absence of Yvonne Hedigan. I thought the two centre halves were brilliant. But I was intrigued to see how the scoreline would go between yourselves and Sligo Rovers. And out of interest, what position were you playing?
Box to box. So I don't know if energy midfielder, you know me. No, I was in the centre circle, where I usually am.
You were in centre back, no?
No, I wasn't centre back. I've been released.
Congrats.
For the time being. Thank you so much.
Congrats.
You know how much I love playing centre back, but no, back in centre mid. Thankfully, although obviously not for Sligo point of view, Emma Hansbury did have an injury, so we avoided that clash. So that was pretty good for our point of view. So yeah, nothing too much to write home about. However, across the pond, we did have our first domestic cup and silverware exchanged. Chelsea v Man City in the Conti Cup. Obviously, there's 4 places between them in the league. Chelsea had won the last 2 of these, and they're very dominant domestically in recent times. So they would have gone into this favourites, even though City's form has turned around in recent times. And you'd have to say, on the balance of things, City very much deserved to win that game.
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant 90 minutes of football, especially for a final. I think anyone watching the opening 45 probably would have put their house probably on Chelsea. I think Emma Hayes said it herself that they did enough in the first half without actually having control of the football the way they wanted. Now there was one moment, I don't know if you spotted in the first half, Demi Stokes went for a strike the edge of the box. Sophie Ingle had her hands above her head and there was absolutely no dramas about that. I just thought that was bizarre. There was no analysis on that at all. But in any case,
funny considering how much fallout there was from the Chelsea Arsenal game and that potential handball on Leah Williamson. I would have thought that people would have been mad to hammer that and be like, what's wrong? Why aren't they giving penalties for these things?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact it was just so unbelievably blatant. There was no natural positioning when your hands are literally above your head. But anyway, City wouldn't have minded too much. Whatever happened the rest of the half time, they came out and just upped the game about five or six gears. think the first half, again, Emma Hayes and the back four would have been unbelievably disappointed. Again, it was Ingall's involvement, very uncharacteristically caught, just ball watching, and Caroline Weir just drifted in behind her, even had the space to take a touch and just drive into the bottom corner. And then I think after that on both flanks, I think, Lucy Braun, Stanway, Hemp was incredible in the second half as well.
For me, Hemp, I think, is one of the players of the season so far. She's so dangerous down that left-hand side. And she caused problems all day, but particularly that second half, like I say, the performance was unbelievable. Not dissimilar to their male counterparts against Man United at the weekend. They just completely controlled the ball.
We don't talk about that sometimes, Karen. That was my father is still in pain over that. But anyway, but yeah, Hemp was epic. Like, and she again, poor defending for the second goal, and no other Ellen White to pop it in. And then that final goal, of course, the second from Weir was just exquisite, wasn't it?
She's had it for a couple of weeks.
Oh my God! Any other player, the ball bounces or it comes out from a corner like that, and you can either A, absolutely lash it, or B, go for that sort of exquisite deft instep, and it was just pinpoint perfect. And she deservedly got player of the match, I think, for those two goals.
Yeah, she loves the cracker. Obviously, they weren't involved in WSL action, but Chelsea's main rivals for that title, Arsenal, were tough task for Birmingham. Although earlier in the season, Birmingham pulled off the biggest shock, having beaten them. However, their run of form has been reflective of their position. I think the last few games, maybe 2 games even prior to this, they'd conceded 4 in each of those games. Scoreline was 4-2 at the end. Birmingham staged a little bit of a comeback, but I don't think it was ever in doubt from an Arsenal point of view. No,
not really. And I suppose probably the only hope Birmingham had going in was the fact that they had a 2-0 defeat early in the season. The opening 45, I've just never seen a team that's so unbelievably comfortable. Birmingham decided just to sit back. They were sitting so deep with 5 of the flat forward in front of them. And it was literally a case where Kathleen on the left joining the midfield, Vine Rathier on the right joining midfield, and then it was either Williamson or Raffaello could actually step in as well. Like, they had so much time and space, they're literally just playing laterally across the pitch. And it's just a case then of breaking Birmingham down, which I think went up to 3-0. I thought it was game over, but massive credit to Birmingham, especially to Lucy Quinn, who I thought was unbelievably tenacious despite being 3-0 down. She played a key part in winning the free kick for that first goal and obviously scored the second one. So there was a few nervy moments, and there was a brief, I suppose, spell where that Birmingham could come back, but then they just finished it off to make it 4-2 in the end, and it was comfortable and worrying time for Birmingham, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a landmark day for a couple of the Arsenal players. I'm sure we will mention this later, with Emma Medema reaching 100 goal contributions in I think something like 83 games, which is ridiculous. But another one was Jordan Nobbs. So she was making her 250th appearance for Arsenal. And there's been a bit on this on Twitter, the fact that she got a 2-minute run out in a game where, she should be celebrated. And, it was a game where they were very much in control. It would have been a game that she definitely could have had an influence on it. What's your opinion on that? Do you think there's no space for sentiment, or do you think that would have been nice for her to have had a proper run out?
Yeah, I just think there was space in that game to give her a substantial amount of time. I think it was like 1 minute and 30 seconds left and brought her on. There is an element of disrespect there, isn't there? Like, I definitely wouldn't have enjoyed that. Not that I ever came anywhere near 250 appearances.
You probably did for UL, you were there so long.
I was there for many years. I probably did, I probably did. Thanks for that, Karen. But in any case, it was 250 and I got 90 seconds on the pitch. I'd be unbelievably pissed off. And you could see the fans on Twitter were not happy as well, because she's such a celebrated player and she's such a huge part of their history. So yeah, disrespectful and unnecessary, probably I would have described that as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Another few games to get through. Reading and Spurs, the only 0-0 of the weekend, but you would have put money on it not ending 0-0. There was chances at both ends.
This was the strangest game ever, because when you look at a 0-0 scoreline, you go on, you expect like a somewhat dry affair, but there was so many chances, quite a lot of drama in front of goal. I'm not sure if you saw that there was one moment at the very end where there was a kind of a loop deflected cross that Cooper left. Maloney went to capture it, just bounced over her head. The centre half went to clear it, hit off Maloney, and then deflected at the sideline. So I think that was kind of a reflection of the way the game went, like a little bit bizarre. Both teams didn't capitalise on their chances and probably a deserved 0-0 draw, but one which I would actually recommend watching because there was quite a lot of entertainment in it.
Yeah, I think they could still be there and it would still be 0-0 just the way the match was going. What that did mean, though, is it opened up another opportunity for United to take claim of that third spot. And United on a really good run of form, particularly home games. They've stopped conceding silly goals like they were maybe at the start of the season, and they took the lead against Leicester after 16 minutes. So it gave Leicester an uphill battle from very, very early on. Again, some very good performances. We mentioned Russo a lot, and a couple of corners going in directly, and not for the first time from Zellum, who scored against City directly from a corner. What's your opinion on that? Is that brilliant corner taking? Is that terrible defending?
It's weird. I think you have to analyze each corner as it comes, right? So obviously she does have an unbelievable quality there, because she did put one in against City. But I think for that one, you would have put that down to Roebuck's positioning, whereas these two are a little bit different. If you look at the first corner, it's not an incredible corner. It actually does go somewhat close to the keeper, but I don't know if it's tactical or not, but 3 of the United players actually rushed in front of the keeper, so managed to bounce in. But the second one, that was definitely clinical corner taking. I think it was pin perfect, just clipped the inside of the post and bounced into the net. But if she can do that if she can do that once and the opposition sees that and doesn't prepare for that, that's pretty bad at Leicester. I'm sure they'll be really, really disappointed with that second one going in, because they both went in the space of something like 4 minutes in the second half, and that completely finished the game. I don't know. Have you ever scored from a corner, Karen? Have you ever taken a corner?
I've never scored.
Never taken a set piece, actually. No.
Absolutely not. I only give them away. The final game then to discuss is Aston Villa and Brighton. Brighton taking this one. Seen from Brighton, again, we'll talk about the importance of set pieces, and Megan Connolly very much involved in that, whipping them in for a Letizia finish. From an Irish perspective, again, Walsh had some very, very good saves. But a good result for Brighton, but probably one we'd expect. But they do need these results. They had a rough time now, but they've turned it around with 2 wins.
Yeah, no better time to turn around, because I think they've got Arsenal up next. So yeah, comfortable opening 45, and then they held that 1-0 lead, and Connolly's just been brilliant. I know Hope Hall name checked her in the post-match interview as well. And I'll be interested to see how they get on now against Arsenal, who are flying.
It certainly will. So the COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports with Cadbury FC, official partner to the Republic of Ireland Women's National Team. If you have any opinions on anything we've discussed there, do we think Chelsea will catch Arsenal with those game in hands? Was that complacency against Birmingham, or is that just the run of form they're in? Get them into us on Twitter and the Off the Ball hashtag OTB COYGIG, and we'd love to hear your opinions using the Off the Ball Twitter handle. So as I said, there's some things you just can't change, and Emma Carroll spending her weekend in front of about 7 different monitors, going blind, watching the move of every single player in the WSL is one of them. Thankfully, Emma is here. Put some manners on us. Emma, who made COYGIG Team of the Week this week?
I'll just run through straight away, but I will say that there was a bit of to and fro, and it's possibly my record Irish Boys Week, maybe. In goal, we've got Maloney. At the back, we've got Kathleen, Greenwood, Raffaelli, and Neville. Midfield 2 of Megan Connolly and Zellum, and then we've got 3 of McCabe, Quinn, and Russo, and Miedema up front.
Yeah, so we briefly mentioned it earlier, just Vivian Miedema reaching those 100 goal contributions. I think we would have put our house on her getting that against Birmingham. But yeah, very good performance from her. A strong Arsenal contingency in there, Raffaele, and she's striking up a good partnership there, and she got her first goal. So I definitely agree with that. However, I do think there were a couple other centre backs. I thought Letizia also, who got a goal, was probably in with a shout, and obviously kept a clean sheet there. Maybe Lily Woodham from Reading as well. Again, just the clean sheets. But Raffaella definitely deserves her spot. I'd possibly tip Letizia.
Yeah, Letizia is one of those that's on my list and was in and out today. She was one of those ones. And then, yeah, it could have been Williamson or Raffaelli. I think the both of them they're just really forming a brilliant partnership.
Yeah, I think Williamson might have just pipped it for me. I was really on the fence, so it was a really hard call.
It was the goal that nabbed it for me now.
Fair enough. We'll give you that one. So
let's talk about your Irish
Williamson's ball towards the end of the match.
Yeah, she's
to Nobbs was just incredible as well.
Yeah, definitely in with the shout there. Okay, let's talk about the Irish bias.
Irish bias
again.
Yep. Bit of a combo from the 2 games, because they obviously had the midweek game as well, and I thought midweek especially she was brilliant. Lucy Quinn, I thought she was excellent. She's one of Birmingham's bright sparks, really. She won the free kick for the first goal. She scored the second one. So she was their real hope. And she was the one that kept plugging forward. She was always battling. She was always the out ball. I just think the last few games, she's really stepped up and she's shown real leadership. And let's face it, Birmingham probably aren't going to get out of this, but if they are, then she's going to be one of the ones that does push them forward.
Do you think that that's possibly a concern that they might lose her given the performances that they've had? Do you think she'd be perfect for someone like even Spurs, just her work ethic and how she works there, possibly a team who's coming up, possibly time for a few of the Birmingham people to be putting themselves in the shop window?
Yeah, like you've Liverpool coming up. Well, I'm touching wood and praying and hoping that that's going to be the case, and that Liverpool are going to come up, and they've already got a nice Irish contingent there, so they definitely could do with a bit of strength and depth and some more WSL experience as well, because they have brought in quite a few new players. Now they have that experience, and obviously Fahy and Campbell as well, but a bit more depth because they're going to have a battle on their hands if that cup game against Arsenal was anything to go by a few weeks ago.
Yeah, just draw your attention again. Neville makes the team of the week again. She was player of the month, and she's had a fantastic run of form recently, popping up with goals, making big tackles. She definitely deserves her shout out there on the right hand side with Russo in front of her.
Yeah, I think she just nailed on this weekend. Really brilliant performance. She was kind of at the heart of a lot of what Spurs was doing. I also kind of was in and out with Percival as well. She was one of the ones that didn't quite make my team. She's on the bench, let's say. But yeah, she was definitely between Percival, Quinn, and I just went with my Irish heart.
And your Irish heart picked Megan Connolly as well. Great to get Megan featured in here. She's so consistent. I think that's a really good thing, really good compliment considering the run of form that her team had been in. I think she's really steadied the ship, and those set piece deliveries, when things aren't going well for you, they can be the difference, and that has proved to be the case in turning around their form this week. So it's great to hear her getting name checked, and long may it continue. Hopefully going into the qualifiers, that will be something that Ireland can look to capitalise on, because they are really, really impressive.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with the Irish bias on most of it now, Emma. So yeah, Connolly definitely, she's amazing. Just to be that much of an important player at this point in their season as well. Lucy Quinn, 100%. Just her work rate. She's just a grafter. She's someone you want in your team, want in your squad. And like, I think I agree, Karen. I think she's going to be definitely someone who's going to be looked at by the teams. She could be ideal for someone like Liverpool. McCabe, I was wondering about this one. She had a good game. She was solid, but then I'm thinking of Lauren Hemp, who was really, really impressive, nearly a game changer for City. So look, I'll just about accept it as you justify it by the previous game, which I missed actually. So look, maybe there is more to it than that.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how many I'd get away with Conti Cup versus WSL either, and I have stuck Greenwood in there. But no, Hemp is, we generally do.
She's basically
better a lot.
Week, yeah. So yeah, not too concerned.
Kind of mix it up. Okay,
sad about missing out this week. But yeah, it's good to see the Irish girls doing well.
Yeah.
And actually, the only other person that I would have put in is another Irish goalkeeper, Walsh.
I was going to say,
very, very good saves. So once we're nailing down that number one spot, I don't really mind where it comes from once it's Irish. Emma, thank you so much for that. So what do you reckon? Did Emma nail it this week? Do you think we left anyone out? Are you sick of us and our Irish bias? I don't think we ever will. Rafa Rockers, get your thoughts and opinions into us on Twitter at Off the Ball using the hashtag OTB COYGIG. Now we are very excited to say that we are joined by Liverpool captain, Ireland Centurion, and all-round sound skin, Niamh Fahey, definitely my favourite Fahey on this podcast. Welcome.
Hey, straight off. Come on.
Cheers, Karen. I appreciate it. Happy to be a favourite as well. Early doors, set for stone.
Yeah, that's the way it has to be. We've obviously been buzzing to get you on the podcast for a while. Very happy that it happened after you reached that brilliant milestone of 100 caps. Now, obviously, we'll talk about that, but you've so much to talk about. Looking at your domestic honours, 3 English Super League titles, 5 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, I'm basing this on absolutely no research at all, but I'm going to say the most decorated female footballer this country has ever produced. All that with all stars, getting a degree, an MBA. Are you wrecked?
You'd be retiring me tomorrow, I'd say, with that list.
Not at all, sure. But I do love retiring, to be fair. I retired in 27, so it's just very impressive to me. Out of that list, I guess you've done it all, you've seen it all. Is there any one thing that stands out to you from your career to date? Obviously, there's still a lot more to come. We're really pulling for Liverpool to get that promotion this season. But is there anything from your current list of achievements that really stands out?
Yeah, look, there's a lot there that I'm obviously very proud of. Different achievements at international level. Although we haven't qualified yet, that's something that I do feel is missing. But aside from that, from my club career, obviously my first period at Arsenal, I really enjoyed all the success we had there, and I really enjoyed my football. So that kind of brings back great memories. But also the All Ireland we won in 2004 with the Galway team. That kind of has a special place because it was done mainly with friends, and Gaelic football have a strong, as you know, background in Gaelic football, and the parish and the pride of place in Galway and all that brings, it has a special emotional connection. So yeah, there's a few, but those are the ones kind of that stand out.
So is that a hint that we might see you in the maroon and white again? I know Ruth has very strong feelings on the GA versus soccer debate here.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We'll have to. I have no plans for after. We see how the body is. If we're.
I prefer now. If you're going back in maroon, you can go back to Galway WFC. There's a team that's in desperate need of an experienced centre half back there.
I'm not sure the way Galway WSC are going. They look like they're flying ahead with the future young ones. So no, they're going well. I don't think.
Yeah. They're going well. Always need for a blend though. Always need for a blend. But it's fascinating you mentioned Gaelic out of all that list, because that All Ireland trophy was like 17, 18 years ago, but it's obviously still a huge achievement in your mind. And this does bring up the question of Gaelic versus soccer. I'll say soccer because it's just easier. And it's quite an issue in the Western clubs. I know, Karen, you would have spoken about it with Sligo Rover CEO last week, and he kind of said, look, you need to keep an open mind with this, as opposed to just being black and white, yes or no. I would have traditionally been black and white, yes or no, because I'm not from I don't have a Gaelic background. I suppose it's not my history, but I know you've spoken in the past about how much it's benefited you and how much it's given you a variety of skill set. Obviously, you still remember that achievement so well. Like, do you think there's an age where you need to choose? Would you encourage multi-sports as long as possible, or what's your view on it now, all these years later?
Yeah, I suppose for me personally, all I can speak of is my experience, and I think it's benefited me. So obviously, I think definitely there's an age that you need to choose. You need to solely focus on one, and for me, that came when I started getting picked for the Irish international team and was making that step up to senior. Maybe nowadays you probably have to make that step or decision a little bit sooner, but I was fortunate enough to have really understanding managers on the international setup and also the Galway team. But I would be of the mantra that the more sports you play, the more diverse skill set you pick up, and therefore the better all-round athlete you become. And it's also more stimulating for the person. For me, I think if I had just solely focused on one sport, yeah, if that's your complete passion, then fair enough, you do that. But I also had a passion for Gaelic football. So the way that took me, I think I was able to maximize the best of abilities in all-round athlete and as an all-round sports person.
Yeah, I think it was probably reflective of the time when we grew up as well. Obviously, domestic soccer wasn't as big. There was no women's national league around. Yeah. So you wanted to get as much sport into your system as you possibly could. There has been a lot of development, obviously, in terms of the Irish League, but you went over to Arsenal at a time, you've seen it all, kind of, you saw the WSL, the Super League come in, and all of the professionalism that's come with that. What's been the biggest change you've seen in recent times?
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Karen, to be fair, about the standard and the professionalism that has come in, because there probably is an argument there that you do need to choose a bit quicker, and the sign of the times that we grew up in was different. But the biggest change for me that I've seen, and even in the growth of the game at home in Ireland, is just the levels of fitness and the speed of the game and the technical ability. It's hard to pick one specific genre, because I think the whole game has just gone levels and levels above when I first started out, in terms of strength and conditioning, nutrition, the way people are recovering, looking after their bodies. Yeah, it's just the whole round athletic performance of the individual has gone up, and also the skill set. So it's great for the game, but also the demands are probably increasing on younger players, therefore to probably pick earlier which route they want to go down.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But you mentioned there that you didn't want to diversify, and you've also included a lot of work and study during your playing career. Obviously at the start that was maybe because you had to, and the WSL isn't where it is now in terms of sponsorship and wages and things like that. But is that a thing with you? Is it to do with balance, or was it just the sign of the times, or what has made you continue your studies, I suppose?
Probably, well, more so I didn't have a choice, so it was definitely a sign of the times, because when I first went to England it was semi-professional, and I was at a club like Arsenal that at that a lot of times people weren't even semi-professional. So I definitely had to have that in the back of my mind, that I needed an education and I needed a job to go into once my football career had finished. As such, at that time I wasn't even thinking of it as a career really. But yeah, I think as the years have gone on, it's also helped me to keep a good balance in my life. I've seen both sides, where you're working and you're playing, and then you're also just playing fully, and actually just solely concentrating on football is not, for me, wasn't a healthy thing. You become bogged down in the results at the weekend. You live for those highs and those lows, and it's actually good for me to have this study to be able to balance that, and actually have something on the side that's not football related, and it's a different purpose, a different perspective. And yeah, I just find it keeps me grounded and less intense really on just focusing on football all the time.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually did a conversation recently with Julianne Russell about this, and she was saying the more she's kind of gone down a similar route, or not even studying but working, either part or full time and playing, and she felt that benefited her really well. So if she had a tough day at work, she doesn't think about football while she's working, and can obviously finish at 5:30 and come and train. So obviously everybody's different, but I can see by your history that you're probably definitely type A personality. I think there's no doubt about that. And like looking at the different routes of education you've gone, was it science and NUIG you kind of started out with?
Yeah,
and then onto pharmacology. I'm fascinated by your transition recently into, is it data analytics or something similar, and then into an MBA at John Moore's. Are you still studying the MBA at the moment?
Yeah, I'm into the second semester route, and the assignments are coming thick and fast, so I'm kind of regretting it at the minute.
I can only imagine. I say that's a brilliant course. I had a little look at the modules just because I'm an absolute nerd, and things like transforming organizations, exploring strategy of organizations, operationalizing the strategy. I was literally just frothing at that kind of stuff. So is it tough, like, or is it really interesting? And I suppose I hope that's a route you see yourself maybe going down when that big retirement does come, whenever you're ready for that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting course. The MBA I'm doing at John Moore's, I'm really enjoying it. It's completely different. Obviously, my background is in science and pharmacology, but this is going into the business, and that's something that I see myself in, maybe like a sporting director, general manager role. That's something that I have an interest in, and definitely within the sports environment. So yeah, it's been a good learning curve, a good step out of the comfort zone, because strategy and transformational leadership, these are all things I had no idea about at all before. So I've really enjoyed learning about them. It's been difficult, but I'm enjoying the challenge, and I'm finding really interesting real world concepts then that I can actually apply to where we're at now. So yeah, it's benefiting me a lot.
Is that something you'd like to bring in, say, down the line with Liverpool? Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the progression of Liverpool, and obviously things weren't as good as they should be for a while, and we're obviously seeing a lot of improvements this season. I assume that that's coming from the top down, not just the players on the pitch, that you're getting a lot more support now, and it's shown. Is that something you'd like to continue possibly with Liverpool, obviously given that you are a lifelong Liverpool fan?
You're lining me up here for a job, Karen.
She's coming back to Galway to play for Galway. Can you just leave her off?
Yeah, look, obviously that's the role I'm kind of gearing towards. And definitely working within sports, within football, that's where I'd like to see my future. It's my passion, and then if I could blend the two, well, then that's hitting the jackpot, really. I don't know what's on offer in Liverpool, but there's no doubt about the restructure that's happened at the club. As we're seeing the benefits of that restructuring in the organisation from the top down. So there's a lot of scope at Liverpool to continue the work that has been done already, to build on, to get the club up to the top level and competing where it should be. So yeah, I mean, who knows, but that's definitely an area that I'm looking at getting into once I stop playing.
And you've got plenty of experience of seeing mismanagement. Obviously, we won't get too into the FAI stuff. I think we've spoken about that a lot, but another thing that's come on a long way. You've obviously gone through, maybe we'll say 3-4 generations of managers now, but this is certainly the time where we're seeing the most focus, I would say, on the women's team. It's been great to see, and it's obviously reflective of the fact that we probably would have gone for Euros qualification before. World Cup would have maybe seemed out of reach, although you'd never say it in the media. But is that mindset to do with just the improvements that you're seeing and the actual backing?
Definitely. You were there, part of the group in Liberty Hall. I mean, you know all about it. There's only to go into the past struggles, but definitely from that moment on was a watershed moment, and it's changed completely, the operation side of things and how we're valued and how we're treated. And I think that brings a good pressure and a good performance pressure. Then we haven't qualified, but we're getting a lot better results that hopefully will transpire into us actually qualifying. But from the CEO to Jonathan Hill to Gareth Maher, all these guys who are actually pushing the game in the right direction and have a will for the women's game, to actually improve and get us to a final. So I think there's a lot of good work that's being done. Obviously it can always improve, but people in the game that are pushing it in the right direction, it's only going to go one way.
Yeah, I promised Karen that I wouldn't go and get into structures and that kind of crap, because we've been gone on for the next 6 to 8 hours here, and it won't be pretty. So but I have to say, Niamh, like the qualification you're getting now and your own experience, like you'll be so unbelievably valuable if you do hopefully come back home. It doesn't necessarily have to be West, but like the way our league, the way the Women's National League is going, and all the talk of going semi-pro or one day going pro, I think it'll be so valuable. So it's brilliant to hear that you have an interest in staying in that side of it, which would be epic. Now I'm just going to bounce back a little bit. I've got a few curveballs, but not too curvy, so don't worry, okay? But I found a very a fascinating article with the Irish Examiner, just an interview with yourself last month, and there's a couple of like beautiful quotes that I just had to throw at you that I really enjoyed. We'll go with one, right? So this is from your good self. I've never had a grand plan. I don't know where this ends. I've always just gone at my gut and with whatever was going. If I take another fork in the road, maybe I'd have stayed in Galway playing Gaelic football, hopefully not, and be working in science somewhere. So I'm intrigued with someone like yourself, like in terms of your decision making. Stop laughing at me, Karen. This is a serious question. This is a serious question. I'm intrigued by decision making and how you went to Arsenal at a time nobody was going over. I actually remember we were at the Manchester Cup with Galway, and we were going to get on the flight, and you were just going off somewhere else. We're like, me, where are you going? Different suitcase. You said, I'm going to Arsenal. With no dramas, no nothing. No, I just signed for Arsenal, and we were kind of shell shocked, but obviously in awe and unbelievably proud that our own teammate was going over. Although he did abandon us just before Sarajevo, which we got over in the end. And you went to Arsenal at a time when no one was going. Obviously, you left Arsenal, went to Chelsea. You went to Bordeaux, which was a little bit different. But in terms of making those kind of decisions, like, do you think it through, or do you just go with your gut, like you say? Are you a pros and cons list kind of person?
Yeah, it's when that interview came up, I those questions, they were quick fire and they caught me off guard. But I think honestly, I
came up with that quote after a quick fire question.
Honestly, that was quick fire, Dublin. I'll tell you, I was
beautiful.
On the spot with
Stunning.
Hence the gut response. No, in fairness, I am someone who is not. I'm somewhere in between. I'm not a pros and cons list. But I'm more driven by what feels right and where I think, this is a good step for me. This is somewhere that I'm going to progress. Feels right at the time. Like going to Bordeaux, I had enough of the English league at that time. I needed to just go and play after losing a starting place at Chelsea. So I'm all about, where's the next step? Where can I improve? Where can be a different challenge for me? And it's all about challenging myself, really. And then, how that fits in the moment. So that's probably the main driver behind most of my decisions. Just self-improvement. That's all I ever really want to do, is try and get better, try be the best version of myself.
Yeah, I love that.
Is that deep enough for you now, Ruth?
That's deep enough for the first time I'm on the podcast. I better not cross too many lines or I'll never be invited back. So.
No, but to be fair, what you mentioned there, you're saying where you can improve, but also where you can be of most help. And I think when you got your 100 caps, a lot of people were obviously on Twitter and just talking about the contribution you've made. And I think anyone who's played in a squad with you bring a positive energy to every squad you're in. And obviously we listed out the achievements that comes from being a brilliant player. What's it like now as captain? Obviously you've always been a leader in squads, but is there a different dynamic that comes with captaincy, or have you always just had that leadership in you where you've kind of took on that role? You're definitely someone I looked up to all the way through, even though you're full of shit, but but is it something you would have gone after? Would you have gone after captaincy, or is it just something that came naturally to you? It was a natural fit.
Difficult question to answer, because the real me, and all these answers here now are the PC version, and they're exactly to get.
I would say it's a natural fit though, given how popular you were among the squad.
You say that, but then it's also definitely, well, I'm doing the MBA now, it's definitely a learned habit, and all these skills are, you think you have a natural ability, but there's so much to come with being captain that you actually have to change a lot of your personality. You can't be, as carefree at times. You have to set a standard instead of set a level. So that's something that I've had to adjust with, and actually keep some boundaries that maybe before you can just be one of the girls in the team, but you do have to separate your boundaries and keep those standards. So there's been a bit of a learning curve, but I think you have naturally, probably like yourself say, I probably have natural leadership abilities, but I've definitely had to work on it, and something that I'm kind of still, like, again, self-improvement, always trying to work on it and gain things from other captains, other leaders, and how they go about things.
Yeah, I think being the captain of a female squad and a lead female squad is really challenging, because you obviously have a lot of different personalities. You have a huge age range, first of all, a lot of different personalities, like a lot of kind of different issues that come up. I found, like, when I was captain, when I was younger, I had like between 16 to 30-year-olds, and I always tried to be very approachable as a captain, but then you end up taking on a lot of other people's problems, and you kind of have to be able to draw that line, like you mentioned the word boundaries, and you have to be able to do that, but at the same time make sure that you're still there to look out for them as well. I know it can be pretty complex, but in terms of leadership styles, I don't know if you've come across that in your MBA yet, but I find it fascinating. How would you describe your leadership style if you had to?
Definitely a transformational leader with a servant leadership style. Is that good?
Oh, wow. Oh, shit.
You're frantically
Here, cut off the podcast there.
I'm going red now. I'm cutting it. That's straight from the textbook.
Oh, that's perfect. So no further questions.
I've just come off semester 1, Ruth, and it was all about leadership style. So okay. I'm well versed.
Well, in the dressing room, in layman's terms.
No, obviously, I'm all talking crap there. Like that's all philosophical, jargon or whatever. But as a leader, probably like yourself, if it is a difficult, complex role sometimes, because the thing I find hard about it is being a player, focusing on yourself, and then also trying to manage everyone else around you, like you said, emotions, and not having those boundaries. But again, if it comes to the things of trying to be approachable, then also trying to be the best player, and I do find that, like you have found, it's a very difficult balancing act, and I think the more you go through it, the easier it gets. But actually, when it comes to, I know you're interested in the research stuff. I don't know if you've come across this, but they were talking about leadership in sport, and for a captain of a team, a player, the most significant effect you can have on your team is actually when you're out playing. So it's not about big speeches or talking a lot. It's actually about your actions on the pitch day in, day out at training. So that's something where I've tried to set good standards, good habits in training. Rather than these motivational speeches, people don't really listen to them and it has little effect. So yeah, being that leader on the pitch in training and during games it seems to be the most effective way to actually help the team. So yeah, that's something that I try and bring.
That's brilliant. No, I haven't seen the research, but I definitely, when as you were saying it, I just thought of Casey O'Driscoll. Remember her, Karen, from college, like not a huge talker, but just an unbelievable baller, and just the way she conducts herself on the pitch and everything. Still remains like probably one of the best captains I've ever had. So that makes total sense.
What I was thinking when you were saying that was approachable. No wonder I was never asked to be captain.
Oh, I didn't want to say.
Oh, clicking here.
Very approachable. It's just you just need to break down that first layer.
One layer.
Too many walls.
There's a lot of layers.
I tried asking Harry deep questions.
Enough psychoanalysis from Ruth for one day. Let's get back to the 100 caps, and I know we just mentioned it and all the praise and stuff you were getting on Twitter. For me, my favourite ever Irish player by far, favourite person to play with, such a calming influence. What did that mean for you? The video that your mom was in was obviously so lovely. I was honest, I was even emotional. What did that feel like for you to finally get some of the attention that I feel like you've always deserved? I know you've won Player of the Year a few times, but it's been a while now, and obviously we talk a lot about Katie and Denise and stuff, but for me, you've always been the spine of that team. What was it like getting that 100th cap?
Thanks, Carol. You're one of my biggest supporters always, but appreciate that. To be honest, it was a bit of a relief getting it, because as it was coming, I was at the 90s, and then you're kind of thinking, geez, this might not come, or you don't know way the things are going to pan out. And then actually, as when I was getting a lot closer, I was like, God, I just kind of nearly wanted to be over now, because there's kind of so much talk about it. So it was fantastic, but at the same time, me, I wouldn't like to dwell on it for too long either. But the video that Gara organised and all the gang there, my mom speaking, I got emotional as well. I was trying not to be emotional, but it does bring a lot home and makes you think back and reflect and say, yeah, well, what an unbelievable achievement this is. So yeah, it was emotional, and obviously just a massive proud honour to reach that number for my country. Yeah,
you're part of an elite club. There are now only 3 others, and they're all people who you're obviously really good friends with. So that must be nice. I'd say you'll reflect over that, maybe having a drink at Christmas and just feel like we had good times.
We have myself and Anya had one or two quiet ones after. We had to, toast the occasion. I don't know if we can put that out now, so we might
like you say, you got the 100 cap there. You don't care. Say what you want.
We talked about it, Anya, as well. What a servant she's been, what a player through the years, still going strong, and Emma and Kira, unbelievable players as well. So to join those group of girls is unbelievable.
Yeah, well, we don't use the word lightly, but thank you, Niamh Fahey, Ireland legend, for joining us on the podcast this week. That's all from myself, Ruth and Emma. Things will be a little bit different on the pod the coming weeks, but I hope you'll stick with us and my obviously unprofessional leadership of this podcast. But please make sure you send Kathleen loads of love on Twitter. We can't wait till she's back. I personally can't wait till she's back. So
thanks, Karen. Jesus.
Give me a chance. We can't wait till she's back again, talking about Sligo way too much. And thanks again to Niamh, and we'll chat to you all.
Thanks, Million Niamh.
Cheers, guys. Really.
We'll see you in Galway soon, yeah.
Exactly. We'll see you in the West soon.
The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland's women's national team. If you have any opinions, suggestions or thoughts on how the season is going, will anyone catch Arsenal? Get them to us on Twitter on @OffTheBall using the hashtag OTBCOYGIG. We'd love to hear from you.
The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.